Chapter 2. Family Heritage. The smell of bacon and black pudding hit Liam as soon as he pushed through the front door. His mother's voice drifted from the kitchen, humming an old tune he recognized but couldn't name, something his grandmother used to sing while preparing dinner for the family. "Morning, love," Mary O'Sullivan called without looking up from the frying pan. "You're back early. How'd training go?" Liam stood in the doorway, still holding his phone, the weight of the conversation pressing down on his chest. His mother continued cooking, her auburn hair tied back in the same practical ponytail she'd worn for as long as he could remember. She'd been beautiful once, still was if you looked past the lines that worry and hard work had etched around her eyes. "Ma'am," he said quietly. Something in his tone made her turn around, spatula still in hand. Her face fell the moment she saw his expression. "Oh, love, what's happened?" The words came out in a rush, like a dam bursting. The phone call, Dave Mitchell's polite dismissal, the way they'd chosen someone more straightforward. His mother listened without interruption, her face cycling through emotions, disappointment, anger, fierce maternal protectiveness. "Those bloody fools," she muttered when he finished, turning off the heat under the pan with more force than necessary. "Blind as bats, the lot of them." "It's all right, ma'am. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just not—" "Don't!" She pointed the spatula at him like a weapon. "Don't you dare finish that sentence, Liam O'Sullivan." The sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs announced his father's arrival. Sean O'Sullivan appeared in the kitchen doorway, already dressed for his shift at the docks, his weathered face curious about the tension he could feel in the room. "What's all this, then?" Mary shot him a look that conveyed everything without words. Sean's shoulders sagged slightly, and he pulled out a chair at the small kitchen table. "Ipswich?" he asked simply. Liam nodded. "Their loss," Sean said, with the kind of finality that only fathers could manage. "Come here, son." For a moment, Liam felt like he was 12 years old again, coming home with a scraped knee or a broken dream that only his parents could mend. Sean's embrace was firm, smelling of tea and the sea air that clung to his clothes. "Your grandmother always said we O'Sullivans were survivors," Sean murmured. "Maybe it's time you learned what that really means." "I'm not giving up, Dad. I don't know where to go from here." Sean released him and walked over to an old wooden dresser that had been in the family for generations. From the bottom drawer, he pulled out a small leather photo album, its pages yellowed with age. "Your nan wanted you to have this when you turned 18, but we thought you were too focused on football to care about old family stories." He set the album on the table and opened it carefully. Maybe it's time. The first photograph showed a young couple standing in front of a small stone cottage, mountains rolling behind them in shades of grey and green. The woman had Sean's eyes and Liam's stubborn chin. The man was tall and lean, with calloused hands resting on his wife's shoulders. "Took that picture the day before they left County Cork for England, 1963. Sean turned the page to reveal more photographs. People in worn clothes with determined faces, children peering shyly at the camera, men in flat caps standing outside what looked like factory gates. "They came here with nothing, Liam. Nothing but stories and songs and the kind of stubbornness that runs in our blood. Seamus worked in the shipyards until his hands were raw. Bridget took in washing until her fingers were permanently stained. But they survived." Another page revealed a faded document, a ship's manifest with names written in careful copperplate handwriting. "But that's not the whole story," Sean continued. "See, Bridget's Uncle Michael didn't come to England. He took a different ship, went to Argentina instead. Buenos Aires. We lost touch with that side of the family during the war, but your nan always wondered what happened to them." Liam stared at the photographs, at faces that shared his features, his stubborn set of jaw. These people had made impossible choices, had left everything they knew for the promise of something better. "Why are you showing me this now?" he asked. Mary sat down beside him, her hand warm on his shoulder. "Because maybe it's time you learned that there's more than one way to chase a dream. Your ancestors didn't let rejection stop them. They just found a different path. The world's bigger than football, Sean added, bigger than England if you've got the courage to look. Liam turned the page and found a map, hand-drawn and carefully preserved. It showed the routes their family had taken, some to England, some to America, and one lone line stretching all the way to South America. Michael O'Sullivan, his father said, pointing to a name written in the margin. Last we heard, he was playing football in Buenos Aires, semi-professional, but he was good enough to make a living at it. That was before the war, mind you. The kitchen fell quiet except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Liam studied the map, tracing the routes with his finger. Each line represented someone who had refused to accept the limitations of their circumstances, who had chosen uncertainty over defeat.
I can't just leave, he said finally. I can't just abandon everything and run off to Argentina because some ancestor I never met went there decades ago.
You're right, Mary said. You can't run away from disappointment, but you can run towards something better. Sean closed the album gently and looked at his son with eyes that had seen their share of crushed dreams and hard choices. I've worked those docks for 23 years, Liam. Good, honest work, and I'm proud of it. But I've also watched ships come and go, carrying people who were brave enough to leave everything behind for a chance at something more. I always wondered what that felt like. The weight of possibility settled over the small kitchen like morning mist. Liam looked at his parents, at their faces lined with worry and hope in equal measure, and realized they weren't just sharing family history, they were offering him permission to write his own story. The O'Sullivans have always been adventurers, Mary said softly. Maybe it's time you found out what that means. Outside, the morning was fully bright now, and Liam could hear the sounds of the neighbourhood coming to life. But inside their small flat, surrounded by photographs of ancestors who had crossed oceans in search of dreams, he felt the first stirring of something that might have been hope. 3 days passed before Liam touched a football again. He spent those days in a strange limbo, helping his mother with shopping, watching television with glazed eyes, and fielding well-meaning phone calls from mates who'd heard about Ipswich through the local football grapevine. Each conversation followed the same pattern: initial sympathy, followed by suggestions about trying lower league clubs, then awkward silences when Liam didn't respond with the expected determination to get back out there. On the fourth morning, he found himself back in the alley, but this time he wasn't alone. The ball he'd abandoned after the phone call sat exactly where he'd left it, and beside it crouched Tommy Henderson from down the hall, 10 years old, gap-toothed, and utterly devoted to football. "You going to kick it then?" Tommy asked, nudging the ball with his toe. "Not today, mate." "My mum says you got rejected by Ipswich." The boy said it with the brutal honesty that only children could manage. "Says that means you're rubbish." Despite everything, Liam found himself smiling. "Your mum's probably right." Tommy considered this seriously. "Nah, I don't think so. I seen you play, you're proper good." He picked up the ball and thrust it toward Liam. "Show me that trick where you make it stick to your foot." Something in the boy's absolute faith broke through Liam's fog of self-pity. He took the ball, dropped it to his feet, and began the familiar dance, small touches, keeping it close, making it an extension of himself. Tommy watched with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious experiences. "How'd you do that?" "Practice. Lots and lots of practice." "Will you teach me?" Liam looked down at the eager face staring up at him and realized something important. Rejection by Ipswich didn't erase everything he'd learned, everything he could still do with a ball at his feet. The skill was still there, waiting. That afternoon he walked to the Ipswich Central Library, a Victorian brick building that smelled of old books and teenage desperation during exam season. He claimed a computer terminal in the corner and typed "football in Argentina" into the search bar. The results were overwhelming. Page after page of information about River Plate, Boca Juniors, legendary players like Maradona and Messi. But as he dug deeper, he found smaller stories, articles about amateur leagues, community clubs, the passion for football that seemed to permeate every level of Argentine society. He clicked on a travel blog written by a British backpacker, You can't walk 2 blocks in Buenos Aires without finding a pickup game. The football here isn't just a sport, it's a language, a religion, a way of life that makes the Premier League look like a polite conversation. Another link led him to a forum post from an Irish expat. The Irish community in Buenos Aires is massive, probably 500,000 people with Irish heritage. There are Irish pubs, cultural centres, even football clubs. It's like a little piece of home, but with better weather and more opportunities. Liam spent hours following thread after thread, his excitement building with each new piece of information. He learned about visa requirements, 90 days tourist visa on arrival, cost of living, cheap compared to England, and the football season ran from August to May, same as England. But it was a single photograph that made his decision for him. Deep in a forum about amateur football in South America, he found a grainy image of a team called Club Atlético Hibernian. The players wore green and white striped jerseys, and behind them stood a banner in Spanish and English, Fundado por la Comunidad Irlandesa de Buenos Aires, founded by the Irish community of Buenos Aires. The caption read, Hibernian FC, established 1889 by Irish immigrants, still playing in the Buenos Aires amateur leagues, always looking for players with Irish heritage. Liam stared at the photograph for a long time. These weren't professional players, he could tell from their faces, their builds, the way they stood with the casual confidence of men who played for love rather than money, but they were footballers, and they were Irish, and they were exactly what his great-uncle Michael might have found when he first arrived in Argentina all those decades ago. He printed the page and walked home as the sun was setting, the paper folded carefully in his jacket pocket. His parents were in the kitchen when he arrived, his father reading the evening paper while his mother prepared dinner. They looked up when he entered, and something in his face must have told them that the conversation they'd been expecting was finally ready to happen. I want to go to Argentina, he said without preamble. Mary's wooden spoon paused halfway to her mouth as she tasted the stew. Sean folded his paper carefully and set it aside. For how long? His mother asked. I don't know. 3 months, maybe longer. There's a tourist visa That's not what she meant, son, Sean interrupted gently. She's asking if you're planning to come back. Liam pulled out the printed page and spread it on the table between them. The photograph of Club Atlético Hibernian seemed to glow under the kitchen light. I found them, he said. I found Michael's people. They're still there, still playing football, still part of the Irish community. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe this is the path I'm meant to take. Mary sat down heavily, her face cycling through emotions too complex to name. Argentina, she said finally. That's a long way from home, love. I know. And expensive. I've got some savings from the warehouse job, and Dad, you said yourself that our family were adventurers. Maybe it's time I learned what that meant. Sean reached across the table and picked up the photograph, studying the faces of the players. Your Nan would have loved this, he said quietly. She always wondered what happened to Michael's line of the family. So, you think I should go? His parents exchanged one of those long, wordless conversations that couples develop after years of marriage. Finally, Mary reached across the table and took his hand. I think, she said carefully, that rejection from Ipswich might be the best thing that ever happened to you, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. And I think, Sean added, that if you don't try this, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you had. Later that night, Liam lay in his narrow bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of the estate settling around him. Next door, Mrs. Henderson's television was too loud. Upstairs, the neighbour's baby was crying. Outside, a group of teenagers were kicking a can down the street, their laughter echoing off the brick walls. These were the sounds of home, the soundtrack of his entire life. In 3 weeks, if he was brave enough to buy the ticket, he would be listening to different sounds, in a different language, under a different sky. He rolled over and looked at the photograph of Club Atlético Hibernian, now pinned to his wall, next to a faded poster of Thierry Henry. Tomorrow, he would start making phone calls, researching flights, figuring out the practical details of chasing a dream across an ocean. But tonight, for the first time since Dave Mitchell's phone call, Liam O'Sullivan fell asleep, smiling. Outside his window, the lights of Ipswich stretched into the distance, a constellation of ordinary dreams and quiet defeats. But somewhere beyond the horizon, in a city he'd never seen, another kind of life was waiting for a boy brave enough to claim it.